Retro video game collecting is a trend that has been growing in popularity for years. People have been collecting games since their inception, but with the creation of the internet, retro game collecting has really taken off. But what is considered a retro game? There's not really a set definition, but it is widely accepted as an old and discontinued computer, console, or arcade game. You might be thinking, why do people care so much about old games? The reasons of why people collect are different. Some people collect to relive their childhood, some people want to experience a generation of games that came before what we have today, and some people just are compulsive hoarders. But there are so many more reasons people do it. A recent trend in video game collecting is to preserve the history of video games. Video games have no significant preservation movements like movies do. A retro game store named Steel Collectibles, that's located in Kennesaw, Georgia, is a one-stop geek shop that supplies people with everything from video games to comics to collectible figures. I had the opportunity to speak with the owner about what it's like to operate a retro game store in today's world.
Hi, I'm Tyler Sanders. I own and operate Steel Collectibles here in Kennesaw. I love retro video games. I used to sell on eBay. It all started from me collecting video games when I was a kid. Kind of started out and then started selling them on eBay when I got doubles. I just ended up with too many. eBay didn't really work out for me. Decided to open a storefront and it's been pretty good since then. So that's kind of why I did it.
Owning a retro game store is not an easy venture. Tyler explains that there is no steady supply, so you really have to rely on the area around you.
So some of the challenges of owning a business like this, we're a buy, sell, and trade business. So we work on basically people selling their old stuff, basically trash to treasure kind of business. When it comes to retro video games, we can no longer order those. So we basically have to let someone bring them in, we evaluate them out, and then we buy them from them and then resell them to customers who collect or just want to play old video games. One of the biggest problems with that is when you're in an area, you can basically get trade-ins from different people in that area. It comes down to saturation. If you buy up all the games in the area, you may not get as many trade-ins as you once did. So being near a college really helps us out with that, being near KSU, because we get basically a new order of customers every semester, which means new people bringing in their old games, new people bringing in their old toys, old comics, stuff like that.
Big box stores like GameStop are really competitive and tend to force small game stores to shut down. Tyler suggests that big box stores can be better for business though.
So when it comes to big box stores, basically there's pros and cons. The pros are they sell things for a lot more than we do. They sell new stuff, we sell used items. So it's definitely going to be a little cheaper at our store. I'd say the biggest con to big box stores is once people know about a bigger store, they go to that store, they trust that store just because it's the bigger store, the store that's known, especially like Amazon. Amazon's a pretty big competitor for us because people can just order stuff from their couch rather than have to go out and buy something, at a smaller family-owned store.
A recent trend in the gaming industry is for companies to sell smaller, HDMI-enabled versions of their retro game consoles that are preloaded with games on them. The most recent of this trend are the PlayStation Classic and the Super Nintendo Classic. Some would think these classic editions would make the original copies of these games and consoles less desirable, but it actually makes more people interested in the originals.
So that's another thing. When it comes to the mini consoles or the ones that have preloaded games on them, there's pros and cons to that as well. It's affected us in a good way, whereas when people get classic consoles, it'll have the games preloaded on it, but there's only so many games on it. So if they want to play games that weren't on it, they have to go back and get the original console, which they're not going to find at Walmart or anywhere else. They'll have to actually come to a store that sells them used, and we'll basically sell them there, and they'll be able to buy the games that weren't on the mini console. As far as cons go, it's a lot cheaper than buying the system and a bunch of games. So you buy that with 30 games on it, you're paying $80, where if you buy the Nintendo, the original one with those games, you'd be spending hundreds of dollars. So definitely pros and cons to both ends of that.
Digital game sales are a huge trend in the industry. According to Statista, since 2014 there have been more digital game sales than physical game sales. While there are some pros to having a digital copy, some feel that there's nothing like being able to put a physical copy on your shelf.
So when it comes to digital titles of games, people can go into Walmart and just buy them, or they can just buy them from their couch on their PS4 or Xbox One. A good thing about digital games is collectors like to have physical copies in their hands rather than just a receipt with a code on it or it preloaded onto their system. The bad thing about that is it's easier. You can just buy it, again, from your couch or from Walmart or wherever, and you don't have to go out anywhere and actually buy a physical copy. You can just get it downloaded on your system. So some people who are a little lazier might go that route, but the collector will actually go out and get the real thing.
The same online community that helped create this hobby is still around, and they are helping each other out.
They've affected our business in a very positive way, I believe. A lot of YouTubers and Twitch streamers, they'll come in a store like this and basically talk it up, film what we have in stock, just put us out there as a whole, and word of mouth is huge with a business like this. Once somebody puts up a YouTube video, if it goes even semi-viral, it'll help us out as far as selling online or selling in store. And we do more in store than online, but we are open to doing stuff online. But yeah, YouTube and Twitch and all that has helped us in a tremendous way.
There aren't many places that aren't on the internet for people to experience the history of these video games. One of the last physical places to experience these pieces of video game history are at a retro game store.
Yeah, I definitely feel our store is one of the last kind of places people can experience retro games, because I mean, you can go online and see anything about a retro game, but as far as feel a physical copy in your hand, big box stores don't get retro games anymore, and this is what makes them retro, is that the only way you can find them is to go out to a flea market or a retro video game store and find a physical copy. So I think it's a big deal that if somebody wants one, they have to go search. They can't just go to their local store and buy it.
As mentioned earlier, there is no significant movement to preserve video games. Tyler believes that this is because those not in the gaming or retro gaming community don't see these games as more than just software, and don't see the deeper value in them.
So when it comes to retro video games and an art form, like movies or anything else of that form, people think of retro video games as old electronics. When people think of old electronics, usually they feel like old electronics aren't worth anything, that they can just be thrown out. I feel like it's a big deal that they're not, and I honestly think they should be.
If you don't support your local retro game stores, then the community will not be able to survive.
As a retro video game collector myself, I feel like it's very important for people to support the retro video game stores in their area. Not only are you giving back to the community by supporting your local mom and pop retro video game stores, but I feel like you're helping something that is kind of a dying breed already come back to life. That was my reason for starting the store in a way. I love retro video games. I collect retro video games. I support other retro video game stores. I feel like enthusiasts in the area should do that rather than just buy online. I feel like it not only helps the store that they want to support, but as well as the community.